Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and Blizzard have released even more buffs to a bunch of classes. Some of them we actually covered in a previous video, but I'll touch on them very lightly. But then there's even more buffs or tuning changes to some of the more notable classes. I think you'll be very excited to hear this if you're a Shaman main or if you hate getting hit by Shaman's Lightning Lasso somewhere mid of the video. But let's get on to some of the buffs coming into patch 8.2. First off, we got Vengeance Demon Hunters, the tank spec of the Demon Hunter class added in Legion. These guys are getting a hell of a lot more armor during Metamorphosis. With all the other buffs the Demon Hunters are getting to make them a little bit more tanky with the insane utility and the mobility they already possess, they have a potential to be either the best tank in 8.2 or at least definitely top 3 in the top tier of all tanks in the game. Very excited to see how Demon Hunters are going to be shaken up once patch 8.2 is going to arrive. We talked about warriors before, but they're getting a fairly beefy buff to majority of their abilities. I don't really know if this is going to change the way the spec is played, so if you're not a huge fan of how warriors, particularly arms, are played in BFA, then this is not going to change the playstyle. So if you're looking for a different class that gives you more than what an arms warrior can provide, now's the time to look. But if you are satisfied with how Arms Warriors are played, then you'll notice the damage buff to Execute, Mastery Deep Wounds, Mortal Strike, Slam, as well as Rend if you do decide to play Rend. I feel for PvP, Arms Warriors always have had this unique role of suppressing heals and getting some great burst damage as well as cleave. So anybody playing Arms for PvP is going to be happy. On PvE side, however, you always have this spec competing with Fury Warriors, and generally one of them is going to come out on top. If Arms does not become a better PvE spec, in PvP it's definitely going to solidify its position a little bit more. We talked about Paladins before, but we finally have some numbers when it comes to the Azeroth trait of Glimmer of Light. You actually get to see just how much Blizzard is nerfing this trait, so now we have some sort of numbers to work with. This is a small nerf in order to bring down Paladins a little bit in order to give other healers, I guess, an opportunity to take a spot. Blizzard doesn't want to have a raid fill out the full tier with only Paladins, but you'll still want to bring one or two maybe, depending on your composition. Overall, hopefully this is not the straw that breaks the camel's back. We also got a talent change for Elemental Shamans, primarily with the Lightning Lasso. Blizzard wants to upgrade Lightning Lasso, so it actually has a spell percentage value in terms of scaling off of spell power rather than percentage of enemy's health, which is very interesting. And there's a couple different things when it comes to this ability. So how is this spell different to live? And there's a couple different things to talk about. On live, this ability is a stun, and on PTR, it is also a stun. But the biggest difference is, on live, if you trinket Lightning Lasso, then the Shaman's damage simply just doesn't follow through. But it seems that on PTR, if you do trinket the stun effect of Lightning Lasso, you still get the spell damage of it. So even if you do break out of a stun of Lightning Lasso on PTR, the Shaman does not lose the damage. Now let's talk about the damage. Does this ability deal more damage now or less? And this one might surprise you. On live, Lightning Lasso does percentage damage. That means it doesn't matter what is the health threshold or the health pool of the enemy, you will still be able to shave off percentage worth of damage. I believe it's like 40% right now, so you'll always be able to take off that 40% no matter what. So the damage number is going to change, but the percentage is always going to be the same. So if you're hitting a tank, if you're hitting somebody with high gear, low gear of stamina, you'll still do 40% of their health, which makes this ability very consistent. On live, we decided to take a look at the actual number that it does to my druid, copy that druid on PTR, and see if that number is higher or lower. We tried it on live, and Lasso, every single time it ticks for me, at my health threshold of 204, with no extra boost for my health, it takes for about 15k a pop. So the number is very consistent in terms of how much damage it does to me. The thing is, it cannot crit, it's always consistent, it can be buffed by abilities, and the only thing that I can do is pop a defensive to lower the damage output. Compared to PTR, Lasso has a couple different things. First of all, the base damage of Lasso is lower, at least for percentage damage. When it does percentage damage, it does quite a bit to me. When it doesn't do percentage damage, the number baseline without any buffs is generally lower. This is a good thing if you are not a fan of being hit by a lasso and being hit for 40% of your health. This does mean that the shaman will need better gear in order to do more damage with lasso. So a early starting shaman with no gear is not going to be able to shave off 40% of your health, but the number is not going to be as low as like 5% or 10%. It's going to be around that ballpark 40%, maybe 30 to 35 or so at the lowest. But it also gives the ability a higher chance to scale up as well. And we tested this on PTR, and it does seem like any kind of buffs like trinkets do up the damage, but still the sustainability and consistency of Lasso ended up being lower than on live. But what is interesting about Lasso is now that it's not percentage damage but rather spell power, it can crit. And shamans play all around crits. For shamans, a critical strike damage is higher than for other classes baseline. While other classes do, I think, 200% more damage, shamans do about 250 or 275 more. Generally, their crits are more value and more effective. So if a shaman crits with Lightning Lasso, it'll actually do quite a bit more damage. And with all the future Azeroth necklace stuff, especially those that can even give you 100% guarantee crit if you stack up a certain buff, wink wink, nudge nudge, you can actually get yourself a very solid lasso. So in a sense, if you're not a fan of being stun locked and having consistent damage, consistent pressure out of lasso, then this change is good, because then the damage is going to vary a little bit. Having higher health is going to help you survive it better, or forcing the shamans to actually get better gear and maybe play around Lasso for a more high crit chance or something is going to influence Lasso itself. So Lasso has a little bit more flexibility to it now. But on the flip side, if a shaman does make some sort of a build, does get some crazy procs and can land a full-blown Lasso, even trinketing it won't save you because the damage will still go through. If they had find a way to guarantee crits for it, buff the damage of those crits even more with other essences from your necklace as well as Sky Fury Totem, a shaman could potentially have basically a one-shot with the Lightning Lasso. Now this does seem like it is at first a buff to everybody that doesn't like Lasso. I mean, who would love being able to wrangled up in a full-blown stun they can't do anything about and have guaranteed 40% of their health just cleaved off? It's not that fun. So for anybody who doesn't like being lassoed up and wrangled up by an Elite Shaman, then you're probably pretty happy about it. If you are a Shaman, however, it might seem like it's a nerf, but the potential for this ability to crit, potential for it to do more damage than it's supposed to, I think is very exciting. With all the necklace stuff, I have almost zero doubt that this ability is going to do more damage because it will scale with gear. We are also going to be seeing a lot better gear coming in patch 8.2. The item level is going to go up higher. So that means more intellect, that means more versatility to buff the damage, more critical strike, and more haste and mastery and all the other stats. At this point, I'm just naming stats. What I'm trying to say is the gear that we will get will make this ability do more. So while right now at 120, before patch 8.2 higher item level gear, which is going to be as high as 445, and most of us are sitting at about 400, 410, maybe someone lucky to get close to that 420 number on average, then we are going to be seeing this ability do far more in the future. And with some of the combinations you can have with Azeroth traits, you could literally potentially make Lightning Lasso a possible one-shot. Overall, I'm very excited with what Blizzard is doing. And I really do think that maybe certain abilities could maybe take off percentage damage. Although I don't think they should ever do that with Greater Pyro. Imagine if that thing could crit. It only does like 30% of your health. Imagine if it did 60 in the single global. I mean, fire mages would one-shot everybody. So I'm glad the Blizzard is starting to do stuff like this. I think originally they did this because they had this PvP essence where shamans would be able to use a Lightning Lasso to stun an enemy and do damage, and they want to convert the percentage health instead to spell damage so that shamans would actually be able to use this in PvE. But still, regardless, this opens up a lot of cool changes to this ability, in my opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys in comments below. What do you think about this change to Lightning Lasso? Finally, they have a couple more things added for the patch 8.2 in terms of essences, and there's way too many changes, so I'll just have a link down below if you guys want to read every bit about it. There's a lot of changes happening where they're trying to bounce essences up and down. It's very small incremental changes instead of big, wide, really leaping changes, which I think is a good thing. They're trying to more fine-tune it rather than trying to buff it or to nerf it. Also, in patch 8.2 PTR, they added a room in Proving Grounds full of train dummies. It's the same Proving Grounds, they just have a lot more train dummies when you're not doing any of the events. There's tanking train dummies, DPS train dummies. I wish they added one for AoE damage and maybe one for like a healer or two. But that's still really cool to see that Blizzard is adding more stuff for it to mess with. I don't know if this is just a PTR thing, or maybe this will come to live, but one of the things you can do on PTR in Proving Grounds is check out all the different essences, which is super cool. Hopefully they keep this feature come patch 8.2. Anyway guys, that's everything that I want to cover for the day when it comes to some of the patch 8.2 stuff. Very excited to see more class changes in the future, hopefully after patch 8.2 is live, and more class changes, especially ones that change the playstyle of certain classes to come in the future of WoW. But that's going to be it for me for now. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Hopefully give you guys all the information you need on all the major class changes. Hopefully I was able to hit on every single important bit so far, and I'll be sure to update you guys on more information in the future. So feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want to see 8.2 and future patches in the future. I'll of course always be making videos on class changes, big or small, just to update all of you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Appreciate the insane support. Hopefully patch 8.2 is going to be here soon, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.